Hey there folks, Josiah here from Turning Wheel, and I want to talk about Barony level editing. We're going to work towards creating a linear style level, so not using Barony's procedural generation, but something more like you would want to make as a modder with your own unique story and like a dungeon that plays out how you planned it, like maybe a traditional RPG adventure dungeon crawler. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know in this video to get rooms set up, players set up, monsters set up, items set up, and an exit, and then also how to inform the game of what your level structure needs to look like so that you can play through and test your first level right away. So we're going to focus on basic sprites and techniques to get basic level design going. It'll introduce you to how easy and intuitive this editor is, and then we can dive into some more advanced stuff later once we've mastered the basics. And I would love to see a lot more workshop mods with your big dungeon campaigns that you can play with your friends or even solo, because the Barony level editor is very powerful, and it's one of the things that you have access to that is exactly the tool that we use in order to make all of the levels in the game. Without any programming knowledge needed, you can make robust and interesting levels and even entire campaigns using the Barony level editor. So I'm hoping this video and maybe a series of videos will help kickstart that a little bit and get your questions answered. Okay, so the first step is we're actually going to launch Barony. We're going to start off by launching the game so that we can test as we work. And the easiest way to do that is by making a mod. So I'm gonna go ahead and launch Barony now. Go into play modded game. And of course we're not gonna play a modded game yet, but this is where all the mod options are located. We're gonna go to local mods, and then you can click create blank mod folder. The name for the new folder, we're gonna call it Baby's First Dungeon. New folder, Baby's First Dungeon created successfully. For now, we're done dealing with Barony, and I leave the game running while I'm editing so that it's easy to pop in and out. So this is my Barony install folder. You can get there easily from your Steam library by right-clicking on Barony and going to Manage, Browse Local Files, and it'll take you straight to your install directory. So here in the Mods folder, you can see Baby's First Dungeon lives here. And then here's all the content folders and everything, a place to store all of our work. So, but I'm gonna go back to the Barony folder and launch the editor from here. If you try to go and launch it from Steam, it won't let you because it's already running Barony, right? But you can just run the executable directly. So you may have noticed that I very quickly maximized the window, and that's because we actually have a bug in the level editor right now. If you don't resize the window by the time the editor has initialized, then your window can't be resized to the size that you want to work at. So all you got to do is resize the window to the size you want to work at before the level editor is fully loaded, and then you'll be good to go. So, all right, so this is the default level layout. Just a few matters of navigation to get us started. You can see that my cursor looks like a pencil. It's because I'm defaulted to the pencil tool. It's over here on the right toolbar here, and the pencil tool is what lets you paint in textures, which are also, you know, the ground, the walls, the ceilings. These are all simultaneously grid blocks and they're textured. So in order to pick your textures, you go to the palette menu here, and this is all the tile textures in the game, including our Easter eggs. And so I'll just go ahead and select mines right now so that we're starting with something familiar. So the default level here, you can see that it's got the ruins, walls, texture. If you hold down Shift and scroll your mouse wheel, you can scroll up and down. This took me to the ceiling layer, and now this took me to the floor layer, and they look identical right now. That's just the default. And if you look down here at the bottom left, you can see the coordinates that your cursor is currently on, and then on the Z-axis, it tells us what layer we're looking at. So the bottom layer is the floor, that's layer 1. The middle layer is the walls, that's layer 2, and the top layer is the ceiling, which is layer 3. It's fast and easy to work with the pencil tool, and your workspace, you can just right-click on an existing texture, and you can see over here we have selected. It shows us what texture we're currently selected on, and underneath it has hover. So if I'm hovering over something, it'll tell me, you know, if I right click on this is what I'll get. Right now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch to the fill tool, and I'm going to select the cobblestone I had earlier, This little palette area, it's like a mini palette which stores the last 9 textures you've used. And then you can, I'm gonna use the fill tool and just click on the walls here, and it replaced all of that one tile with a different tile. Real quick right now, one of the things that we can check is if I press the F key, we'll go into first person mode and we can explore around our level. So this is not running the entire game, so you can't test your level that easily, but you can get an important sense of the space and what it looks and feels like before you dive into more detailed work. I can see already that we don't like this ceiling and this floor, so I'm going to go to the palette and replace the floor with dirt. And so I'm just going to scroll down to the floor and I'm going to fill that in with dirt. And the ceiling, I'm going to select gray brick, because in the mines, the high walls are always gray brick and the low walls are always cobblestone. And so actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the select tool. I can click and drag over all of this space, and I'm going to Control C, and I'm going to shift scroll up to the ceiling, and I'm going to Control V, and that copies the wall shape, and I'm going to go ahead and fill it in with this brick. We still have this ugly tile ceiling in here, so I'm going to scroll back down, and I'm going to right click on air to sample that. I'll go back, I'm just going to fill up that old ceiling with emptiness, and now when I press F, you can see we have what looks like a pretty good standard blank mines layout. Before I get any further, I'm going to go ahead and edit the map attributes. So if you go up to the map button up here and click attributes, you can get to all the sort of map wide settings. So all of the basic values that the map has before you've even done any design work is available here. We're going to call this map Baby's First Dungeon Floor 1. And then this author is me. If anybody else opens your map, then they'll get to see your name on it. And we're going to disable traps. We're going to disable monster spawns. We're going to disable loot spawns. We're going to disable digging. So this does make it so that when you hit a wall with the dig spell or a pickaxe, that it will not break. We're going to disable teleportation, and we'll leave levitation on. The reason for that is because we're making a linear style classic level. We don't want to keep things enabled that are going to break how your level's intended to play out. So it's definitely great to make mods that take advantage of Barony's procedural generation, but if you're looking to make like your own cool campaign, I want to make sure you know exactly how to do that. We're not going to disable opening spell, and we're going to disable Herc's messages because we don't want the game's original story interrupting your story. We'll leave hunger on. We'll set the map width to, let's make it 15, and we'll make it the height 15 also. Just a cute little square map. And one more thing, you'll notice, okay, we've got entity quantity, monster quantity, item quantity, deco quantity. These are all qualities that have to do with things that procedurally spawn into the level that you have not placed. So this is how the Barony's normal biome levels work. We're not making a procedural level, we don't need all that. So we're going to leave that alone. We're not going to do a skybox. The ceiling is 0, which is the default hard rock texture. That is fine for this mines theme. So I'm just going to leave it and say, okay. If you do want to replace the ceiling texture, the easiest way to do that is to go to your palette. And if you hover over any of these textures, it tells you what number of texture it is. And so if I wanted to replace the ceiling texture with this gray tile, you can see that it's number 36. And so I would just go to map attributes, and then instead of 0, I would put 36 in here, and it would give us that ceiling. So you may have noticed that when I changed the map size, it cropped what was left of the map. And so this is a good opportunity for us to use the grid. So if you hold Control and then press G, you'll see a grid show up, and now you can tell what's an active part of the level versus just what is the working background. And so now I can see if I just extend these walls, to here, and I scroll up and I right click that to sample it, and oops, and Control Z does work. And I extend these walls to here, then we're gonna, fully enclose our room again, and now we can actually see across the entire room. If you paint air onto the ground, then that's how you create a pit. I can goof around here and just draw whatever I want to real fast and hit F, and you can see it's totally, you can get a real sense of what it would be like to explore that scribble And once again, if I wanted those to be tall walls, I could just copy this and paste it up to the top, and then select my fill tool and my brick texture. And look at that. We have something that looks like, you know, a pretty random little mine maze. So it's that simple just to create a place to explore. Very easy. There are certain tiles like water that if you paint it on the ground, that will behave like water. The game recognizes that you're using that texture and it will change the behavior. Same with lava. Most things other than the liquids and the walls and the floors, most things rely on sprites to have game behavior attached to them. Otherwise, it's just looks and exploration is what we're doing with the basic tools here. So I think before we do anything else, it would be a good idea to get this in game and see it playable, just to get us started on the right foot. So the first sprite we're going to touch, we click on the sprite menu over here to open up and see all of the game's sprites. And the first sprite next to null is this player start. So I'm going to click this. It looks like a play button. And the first one I place, that's going to be player 1. Bloop. So the editor does seem to remember what order you pull them out in. And so this is player 1. And if I save this map, so the way I want to save this map is first I'm going to go to directory. And I'm going to select Baby's First Dungeon and click Set Save and Set Load Directory. And you can see right here, it's looking at our folder structure that we created using the mod window. That's why we went and did that first, so we could save. Now, this is set, so we'll close it, and then we can go to Save As, and we'll just call it level_1 save. Okay, so now we have our little box with our little player start location. And I'm going to open this back up, and I'm going to open our mod, Baby's First Dungeon, and maps. So here in the maps folder, you'll see that there's a levels.txt file. I'm going to open that up. And you can see this is the structure of the Barony game by default. But we're not playing the Barony game. We're playing our own dungeon, right? So you'll notice that they all start with either map : or gen : and once again, gen is the prefix here that's used to describe a map that uses procedural generation. And we're going to build a whole campaign out of static maps. So we can delete all this stuff except for the first map : and we're just going to call it level_1. That's the same name. It's the file name right here. It needs to be precisely that. If I save this and then I go back to Barony and load our mod, click, and you can see it's loaded. Note that achievements do disable when you're playing a custom map, and that's just because you could cheat in everything you need to get all the achievements if you wanted. And then we click Start Modded Game. And so it takes us to this menu, and this whole thing lets us, we can play our own maps multiplayer if we want to. Go to Local Adventure, we'll just be Grumpy Dan, that's fine. And click Ready. All right, oh, and it's very dark, right? Because we didn't put any light sources in the level. But you can see that we are in this little square room. You can look at the mini map and see, sorry, it's so dark. And actually, I can use cheats. It might be good to show you how to do that. Game settings, turn on cheats, okay. So I could say spawn item, lantern, enter, and then pick it up. When you're, designing and doing level work, it can be useful to cheat if you need to. Although I'd always recommend playing through your own work without cheating before you send it out to anyone. So yeah, there we go. We have our room. It looks exactly like we expected. No problems. And we learned a little lesson that maybe some light sources would be nice to have. All right, so that's we've made a functioning playable level mod that works perfectly. Of course, we haven't designed any good content, so that's where we're going to go next. We did create this start sprite. This is the first sprite we've used. When you select sprites from the menu, you'll notice that the cursor automatically changes to look like this hand icon. And with this hand icon, you don't interact anymore with the tiles painted in the world. You only interact with sprites, and every game object is a sprite. So that lets you pick them up. It lets you by left clicking and then left clicking again to put it down. You can right click to leave one there and then duplicate it and then move it around. or you can right-click it and then right-click it, and you'll keep it, and you can just spam it as much as you want to. And you can just press delete at any time to get it off your cursor. We'll go ahead and make 4 of these because, you know, it's a 4-player game. But if I hover over a sprite and or select it, doesn't matter, you can do either. I usually select it. And then press F2. You can open up the sprite properties. So every sprite has its own gameplay properties. Some of them don't have any at all because the sprite is so simple, but many of them have complicated sets of properties that give you a lot of opportunity to customize. So the player start property, the only thing that it has is what direction do you want it to face. Now you can randomize the facing direction, I guess that could be useful, but facing east is just fine. You'll notice this little help text up here, spawn facing direction, -1 through 7. That's telling you those are the valid values that you can enter into this field. And so if I do 1, we can see that, you know, each number is associated with a direction. So I happen to know that 0 is east, and it kindly shows me, yes, I have east selected. So I'm gonna hit OK. All of these are all facing east, and that's perfectly fine. All right, so to get a little more interesting things happening in here, I think we should build a prison. Let's say that the story of our mod here is that the players begin destitute and level 1 and penniless in a goblin prison. So I'm gonna build jail cells for our heroes, and we'll get started that way. So I'm just going to create a little jail cell. If we press F to test this out and see how big is this space? Is it big enough? This looks big enough to be a jail cell to me. Go to the next one up and duplicate that effort here. Okay. So now they are floor to ceiling, and I don't think jail cells should have these big majestic ceilings. So we'll go ahead and fill in the ceiling here with, let's use a different texture just for variety. And above doors, I often like to put this brick icon, this one right here, this texture, kind of an omnidirectional brick close-off point that I think works fine. And yeah, it looks pretty decent. So, all right, we got our separate rooms, and now we need them, you know, this is a prison, so they should be closed in. So we're gonna go ahead and find the gate. We have east-west facing gates and north-south facing gates. So this is, these are east-west facing openings. So we're gonna go ahead and put those in here, right-clicking to duplicate it. And so then this begs the question, how do the players get out? I'm gonna move player 1 down here to the bottom. And I'm actually gonna bust open this wall. And we're gonna do something kind of tricky, okay? So the next sprite we're going to use is a pretty complicated sprite, and it's pretty new from Quality of Death, but it's very handy. It lets you put pretty much any model in the world and have it behave in certain ways that you want. So I'm going to go ahead and select Decor. We have this box with a big C on it, and it says Decor underneath. And that is short for collision decor. So decorative models with collision on them is what this is made for. So I'm going to pull this in and replace my wall. And if I use my pointer, I can select it and then press F2, and we can see all the options that we have here. So the first thing it's asking us is, like, what model texture do you want to use? So if I open up and back all the way out to Barony, we can go to the models directory and open up this models.txt. So if I right click on that and go to edit with Notepad++, I can browse through all of the models in the game. And, you know, we don't have like a viewer that lets you view them in 3D or anything. They're named pretty intuitively, and so if you know what something is called, you can probably find it by clicking Control F and then typing weak wall in. Okay, so there's the ruins weak wall. Okay, weak wall mine, that's what we want. So that's number 1226. Now Barony starts counting at 0, but Notepad++ starts counting at 1. And so to account for that, we're just going to subtract 1 from the final number here. And that was 1226, so that's going to be 1225. And this thing helpfully tells me, yes, this is doors weak wall mine. Great. So I'm going to, all these other things, height offset, X offset. The reason why these are here is if you just want to use any old model as a prop in the environment, you can do that. And you can put it anywhere. You can have it hanging from the ceiling. You could put it stuck onto a wall, whatever you want to do. And the offsets allow you to do that. So we're gonna leave. It's gonna have collision, so leave that on, and it's gonna be the size of a full wall. So 8 by 8, and we're gonna make it only like 10 HP because we don't want the player to have to be stuck there digging at it forever. And we'll go ahead and make it diggable. Not that it really matters. And the damage types will determine what sound it makes when you hit it, but also what gibs spawn when you destroy it. So 1 is wood barricade, 2 is mine's weak wall. Perfect. Okay, so now we have a false wall here that the players should be able to break out of. All right, before I go back into test, this is almost at another stage where I think it might be good to test again. But before I do that, we learned our lesson earlier about it being too dark. So I'm gonna go ahead and spawn some torches. You can see there's these 4 sprites up here, and they all are labeled torch, and they are, their icon shows what wall they're stuck to. So with this torch sprite, the way it's programmed is you have to pick whichever one for whichever wall you want it to be stuck to. And so I'm gonna put a torch here and a torch here so that there's some light in the level. And just because I like to make things pretty, let's go ahead and put on those walls, let's go ahead and put a wood post on them so they're kind of justified in how they look. And we might as well put one here and here too. And there we go. So we have a way to get out of your jail cell, and we have some lights. And we've built all these brand new jail cells. So let's go back into the game, and all I have to do is click restart game because we already have the mod loaded. And if I just want to test this level again, I just click restart game. Boom. And suddenly, look, I started in my jail cell. And because I moved player 1, I started next to the weak wall. Just what I wanted. All right. So in theory, you play this game with your friends. You all load in. It doesn't really matter how many players there are because player 1 always spawns and one with the weak wall. So I'm going to go ahead and bust through the weak wall. It had 10 hit points, so it took me 10 hits. And now we found the side escape. And here's our room full of jail cells. All right, everything is working as we intended. Perfect. And so I'm going to go back to the editor. Well, how do we let our friends out? That's the next question. So I'm going to introduce you guys to the sprites that we use to cause in-game interaction events to occur. So first we want a lever. And a lever is a power source. When it's not pulled, it's not providing power. When it is pulled, it is providing power. You just put this right next to the gate. It would actually provide power to the gate, and you could just pull the lever and the gate would open. But it doesn't look nice to have a door to have to walk through a lever in order to get through a doorway. That's pretty ugly. So we're gonna have this be across the room, and right here we'll have a little guard station. So let's make some more walls. Let's put down a table. If I edit this table, then I can stop it from rotating. I can make sure there's no chairs and there's no items that are going to randomly spawn on there. So we'll make our little guard station. I'm going to put a torch over top of the lever so that it draws a lot of attention to itself. Light is a very handy level design tool to draw player attention. We'll go ahead and close this off. We won't make use of that right now. If we pulled this lever, nothing would happen. It's not connected to anything. But if we open up Sprite and go to wire, it's this lightning bolt here. All the wire does is it carries power sources. So by putting this down, I'm going to right click on it so I can spam as many of them as I need. And we just need the wires to touch the power source and the recipient of power that we want to be powered. And that's all of these gates. And so what'll happen now is that when we pull this lever, all the gates will open. Now we can give that another test. Make sure that our wiring works. Once again, all I have to do is save and click restart game. We're gonna bust through this wall again. And okay, as you can see, we did not make our walls tall. And we see this lever is here, and here's our gates. And look at that, works just like we expected it to. Okay, let's go ahead and copy these walls, move them to the top, and then fill them in with this gray brick so that they look matching to the rest of the dungeon. So, and while we're here, I'll go ahead and add a door to this, and I'll add a gate to this. So we'll put a chair down. Again, we can F2 to change the facing direction. We'll have it face south so that it looks like it's pulled up at the desk. Also, I would like to put in some tables with some food on them so that the players can start with some food to get them going. And might as well have like a fireplace. Let's put a fireplace over here. Fireplacey to me. Terracotta. Alright, we'll press F, we can look around. Alright, we got a fire at the end of the prison hallway. We got some tables, and then let's put some food down. So I'll go to the item sprite, F2, and okay, so this is the item menu. You can put any item in the game on the floor here if you want to. But you can also randomize items to be in different categories. So in the right window here, you can select a very specific item. You can put it in any condition that you need to. It can be anything from decrepit to excellent, and that's by typing 1 through 5 in here. Let's go ahead and set it to excellent. You can have it have any level of blessings between -9 and +9. We'll just make it regular. We don't want it to be randomized. And the quantity. So we could have like a stack of food that you pick up with one button press. But let's go ahead and leave it at 1. They can be unidentified. And here at the bottom, if you want to leave it random, then you click random item from this list. And then you can decide if it's full random, or you can have it be, and that will actually make it randomize appropriate to the floor level that you're on. It kind of helps to balance. It's trying to balance to make sure it gives the player appropriate items for the level. But again, we're planning everything about this mod. We're making our own dungeon. So I want it to be random food, and I can skim through the categories. 1, 2, so 1 was weapon, 2 is armor, 3 is amulet, 4 is potion, 5 is scroll, 6 is magic staff, 7 is ring, 8 is spellbook, 9 is gem, 10 is thrown weapon, 11 is tool, and 12 is food. And so there's more categories. You can skim through them if you like, but I like the idea of it just being random food. That's fine with me. So I'll go ahead and duplicate them onto all these tables. It looks like it was almost mealtime for our poor prisoners, and when one of them gets the idea of how to escape. Because we've done some furnishing work, let's go ahead and, just for looks, let's go ahead and furnish a little bit more. I'm going to put a chair in every room, and we're going to have it face east towards the door. We can pretend it's a toilet if you want. And I'll also put a bunk in each room, each cell. And I'll copy that one and copy this one. And so everybody's got a chair and a bed now. So now we've got some more. And we'll put it in, we'll replace the torch over the goblin's table. All right. So now this place is a little bit more fleshed out. Let's go ahead and give it a test. All right. We've got our bed. I think the ladder should be exposed, so I need to flip those around. While I'm thinking about it, I'll go ahead and take care of that right now. I just gotta switch which rooms these are in. I just forgot which direction the bunks face. There we go. Save. And there's no harm in me going ahead and restarting right away. And look at that, we got the ladder. And we're gonna bust out of here, boss. Alright. And we're kind of sneaking by the fire pit. Oh, you know what? The floor and wall texture here should look a little bit more thematic, huh? So let's go ahead and go back to the editor. I like to use this this dark cracked rock for underneath fireplaces in the game. This one right here. It's got kind of a central looking, like a radial kind of pattern to it. And then the wall behind it, I think, should probably just be more brick like that. There we go. So I'm not going to restart it this time. We just did a little texture change. That's fine. All right, we got an apple, we got cheese, we got meat, we got meat. All right. That all worked. Here's our little guard station. Here's our door and our gate. And you can see that I forgot to put tiles above them. So let's go ahead and fix that while we're thinking about it. Once again, click, click. This is a mistake I make all the time. As you could probably guess. Save that. And make sure, even though we moved our lever, let's make sure it still works. And it does. All right, perfect. Yeah, QA as you go, I always say. There's no reason to put all that stuff off to the end. All right. So, next up, we need a goblin guard to threaten us when we get out. So, let's talk about how enemy sprites work. So, let's select goblin from the sprite list. Now, I could use the randomized enemy sprite. That is this one right here. So, if I just threw this right here and hit F2, you can see that it's a random enemy. You can disable it being a mini boss, so you have a little bit of control. But again, this is a planned campaign, so every enemy is going to be handcrafted and hand placed. So we'll call this goblin Shrekito, and we're going to make his HP real low because actually Shrekito the lazy. There we go. So we got a lazy goblin. Their max HP and their current HP can be different values. So you can have a character that's wounded or whatever before you start fighting them. But they will regenerate over time, and so I tend to just leave the max and current HP the same. MP is actually a value that does not matter for enemies. We're going to lower his strength to be like 2. And his dex can stay small. Let's lower his natural armor constitution to 0, and the rest of him can stay as is. Goblins start with a lot of random items, so I'm going to go ahead and click on each of those slots and null them out to nothing. Because I don't want the player to be looting this goblin for a lot. Actually, maybe I'll give him one thing. In his inventory, we're gonna give him a tin opener. Tool tin opener. And let's make it worn, and it's gonna be, you know, unblessed, and it's just one of them, and it's not going to be identified. There's a 100% chance for it to be there. And one of the reasons why I want this goblin to have a tin opener is because this random food could be a tin, and I want the players in this campaign to I want them to be able to use whatever that food is. The only reason why I've randomized the food is because I like it thematically being random. But that creates an unreliable situation, and so I'm going to compensate for that by giving the goblin the tin opener. So click OK. Get rid of his random weapon. He's going to be unarmed. Get rid of his random armor. He's going to be unequipped. Get rid of his random shield. And alright, we got ourselves a naked goblin. Oh, and disable mini-boss so he doesn't occasionally spawn as the Potato King. We don't want that. So, okay. So we got an enemy in the level. We'll go ahead and give that a save. And restart. I'm going to go ahead and assassinate him. Boom. Alright, and Shrekito the Lazy drops his tin opener. And now we have a tin opener. So everything is working exactly as planned. Gotta take those gates open. Make sure everybody else's room looks good. Yep. We can get a light source for ourselves. Alright. Perfect. And now our exit area is open. Spoiler alert, this is going to be the exit. And then we also have this, which is like, we'll call this the evidence room. So, everything we're doing has worked perfectly so far. So, I'm going to do a couple more things, and we'll wrap up this level pretty quick here. So, we'll just throw these items on the ground in this room. This is sort of like for now, we'll just call this a storage closet for like what we can assume was the player's equipment. I'll go ahead and put a short bow in here. And we'll do a spell book of Force Bolt. We'll go ahead and make the lockpick be in excellent condition, and we'll give them 3. Because in order to be a reliable lockpick, you need a few. So if you got 4 people in the party, you know, you got 8 items, you can decide what role everyone is going to play, and that way they're all equipped with something to start off the game. So I'm just going to go ahead and test that and see, make sure that the random items show up in a way that I approve of. All right, we got a slingshot. Okay, so a slingshot did replace the random weapon, which is not ideal, but you know we're experimenting with what is a good way to do this. I don't think this is terrible. Okay, well, and we can massage all this a little bit more later. I'll go ahead and put a torch in this room so that it's not pitch black. And I'm going to change Shrekito's name because The character's sex is not predetermined, and so we'll just call it Lazy Goblin, so as not to create any dissonance. The last thing I kind of want to do is create our exit. You know, the players fight their way out of their little prison cells. They get some of their equipment back, and they can leave the level. There it is. Ladder. And I'll just make this shorter because there's nothing else in this room so that it looks better. A little more symmetrical. I like some symmetry. What this exit does is it just takes you to the next level according to our levels.txt file, okay? So if I used that right now, then I think it would just start it would just play the same level over again because it had reached the end of the map list. So we need to add another map to this, and we'll just do level 2. And so I'm going to save that, and then go to new, and we'll do Baby's First Dungeon Floor 2, and click Create, and then I'll add the player starts, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're not going to make it any more complicated than this right now, level _2. We just want to test that our exit works. Okay, so this is saved. The other level is now saved. And now this gate is open, and if I go into this exit, it should take us to that blank level 2. And wouldn't you know it, we are in that sort of default level. So everything's working as expected. After just that bit of work, we're able to create our own custom level progression that's completely determined by us, with just a few basic tools, and we can even start to piece together a kind of a story. So there's a lot more that we can do to make this a lot more sophisticated, but if you're just getting started, hopefully this has been really informative for you. If there's anything that you really want to make sure that I cover in my next tutorial about this topic, you let me know in the comments, please. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I hope you're inspired and excited to do a little bit more Barony modding. I hope you masters of the dungeon have a fantastic day. Bye.